Hey everyone, it's Paige. Welcome back to my channel. So if you missed my Instagram story at the beginning of this week, this haircut might be a surprise to you. I wouldn't necessarily call it a whim that I went to a pixie cut because I've been wanting to return to a pixie cut for a couple years now. I used to have one when I was in high school and I was missing the ease of it. So I finally decided that I was going to do it. Anyway, today I wanted to do the mid-year book freakout tag, and Butterfly Angel actually recommended that I do this tag, and I had completely forgotten about it because it seems bizarre to me that we're already in the middle of the year. It literally feels like we just entered 2022. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with this tag, I basically answer a bunch of questions about the books that I've read so far this year and books that I want to read later in 2022. If you're looking for book recommendations or ideas on what to read as far as new releases go for 2022, this is a great tag because it made me go through a lot of the books that are being released in 2022 and really considering what would draw my interest later in the year. As I'm doing this tag, please feel free to do it yourself, maybe leave it in the comments, or consider this me tagging you to do your own video. I would love to see them. But without further ado, let's get started with the tag. So the first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? And my answer, surprisingly, is a contemporary YA novel. It is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I talked about this book a little bit in my last video. This is a story that takes place during one singular day in New York City. It follows two teenagers, Natasha and Daniel, who meet in New York City on the same day that Natasha is being deported with her family to Jamaica and Daniel is having his interview for Yale. I absolutely loved this story. I loved the themes of fate and destiny and following your heart, following your dreams. This book comes highly recommended from me and I wish I had read it sooner. Question number 2 is, what is the best sequel that you've read so far this year? Having read the second Crescent City book, that is going to be my favorite sequel of the year, which is actually a pleasant surprise because I believe last year A Court of Silver Flames was one of my biggest disappointments of the year. I enjoyed it to some extent, but it was my biggest disappointment, and that was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Yeah. But on the other hand, I really liked this sequel. I felt like it built upon what was already there in Crescent City. I liked the new characters, the new plot lines, and the ending, which I talked about a little bit in the last video too. This book just made me really excited for what's to come in the Sarah J. Maas universe. The next question asks, what are some new releases you haven't read yet but want to? And I'm actually halfway through a new release that I wanted to read this year, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I'm listening to the audiobook and reading it simultaneously, so I listen when I'm getting ready and stuff and then switch to the book when I'm ready to sit down with something. But new releases that I want to read and haven't picked up yet include When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is like an historical fiction fantasy book. This takes place in a world that is very much like ours, except for a very massive and significant event that takes place in the 1950s called the Mass Dragoning, which is when hundreds of thousands of women suddenly transform into dragons and take to the skies. I saw a positive review of this on TikTok, which intrigued me, and I also like the concept. I don't know, I'm just curious on how this is going to play out in a book. The second new release that I do want to get to is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is the first book in a young adult fantasy duology that takes inspiration from Chinese mythology and the legend of the Moon Goddess. As the title suggests, I believe that it follows the daughter of the Moon Goddess, who is hidden away with her mother on the moon until she and her powers are discovered and she is forced to flee for her life. Not only does this book have great reviews, but the book cover is so fantastically beautiful that I can't help but look at it and think I need to read that. I am usually a pretty big fan of Asian-inspired fantasy, so I really think I would like this book. Question number 4 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And coming in as my most anticipated release is probably It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. I've only read 2 Colleen Hoover books before, and the first one was It Ends With Us, which drastically changed the way that I look at romance novels. It Starts With Us is a sequel that follows one of the characters in It Ends With Us. I haven't read It Ends With Us in years, but it still has a special place in my heart, and I'm excited and a little bit wary to see the story of this character. This book is supposed to come out on October 18th. Just to mention a couple others that I found as I was looking through new releases, I'm also excited for The Witch in the Well by Camilla. This is a dark Norwegian thriller that centers around a very old story about a young woman named Elsbeth who was accused of witchcraft centuries ago when children started going missing in the town, and despite being acquitted of charges, the townspeople ultimately drowned Elsbeth in the well that the children were last seen at. This comes out in September, and you know I'm gonna want to read this for Halloween. Like, I'm already so excited about the vibes. Another thriller that I'm excited for that's coming out in November is Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. This is a story about what the title suggests, which is that 6 friends go on a cabin trip and things turn deadly. Obviously from my selections you can tell that I'm looking forward to thrilling novels that I can read during fall. Moving on, question number 5 is, what is your biggest disappointment of the year? I kind of had a hard time choosing for this, but I decided that I would go with Promises and Pomegranates by Sav R. Miller. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling that I thought was going to be genuinely a retelling, and it's more so a mafia story, which I don't mind. I've read them before, but I didn't feel like this one was particularly good, which was kind of disappointing because it came so highly recommended by TikTok. My biggest gripe is that it's kind of cringy, kind of cheesy, I guess. That's all. Number 6 is, what is your biggest surprise of the year? And I have to say that my biggest surprise was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Like I said in the last video, I know that I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've loved anything that I've read of hers. However, I wasn't expecting to like this short story as much as I did. The audiobook is really well done, full cast. The story is quick and heartbreaking, yet hopeful, yet sweet. The characters are just really fleshed out, which is so amazing for how short this story is, and the ending really packs a punch, so I really liked it, and that surprised me. This is a contemporary fiction short story about 2 married couples. The man from one marriage and the woman from the other are having an affair, and their spouses find out. Number 7 is, what is your new favorite author? So this year, thanks to my lovely coworker and friend Jess, I was introduced to Kingfisher, who is a horror writer, and I started my journey with her by reading The Twisted Ones. This is a supernatural horror. It follows a woman who goes to clear out her grandmother's estate in a very, very rural place. She ends up sort of uncovering this weird journal that her grandfather was writing, and she notices very bizarre stones around the property. Yeah, like, it's very surreal, weird, creepy. Highly recommend this if you like supernatural horror. Taking a turn, number 8 asks, who is your newest fictional crush? I feel like this one is just so obvious. Not only did I watch the 2nd season of Bridgerton this year, but I also read The Viscount Who Loves Me, which the 2nd season is based on. This, of course, is written by Julia Quinn. It's the 2nd book in the series. No, I have not read the 1st book or any others, but I plan to do so. And I just love Anthony Bridgerton. I just do. Honestly, having read this book and having watched the 2nd season of Bridgerton, I'm not sure which version of Anthony I like more. I just loved the actor's portrayal of him so much in the series. He has so much presence and emotion and passion. Really, really like him. For a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with Bridgerton, this book specifically follows Anthony Bridgerton, who is the eldest Bridgerton sibling, as he's on his quest for a wife, and it's all downhill from there. Or uphill, I guess. Number 9 asks, who is your new favorite fictional character? I have to go with Bryce Quinlan for this one. I read Crescent City when it came out, which I guess at this point was like 2 years ago, and I liked her in that book, but I felt like she was even better in this book. I love how sassy she is. I love how girly she is. I love how powerful she is. She does everything in heels with a manicure and a dress, and she intimidates everyone she meets, so I just love her so much. I think she has the wittiest comebacks too, which I really appreciate. Conversely, number 10 asks, what books made you cry this year? I have 2. I did cry at The Sun Is Also a Star. After such a sweet build-up, that heartbreak felt extra intense. And Crescent City made me cry again. Mostly the first one, and maybe some of you can guess what point in the story made me cry. Or there's 2 points really, but yeah, if you read the first Crescent City, you might be familiar with what scenes I'm talking about, but they did make me cry for the second time when I reread them this year. 11 is, what is a book that made you happy? And weirdly enough, I talked about this series in the last video, but the Mindf series by S.T. Abbey. This is a thriller romance that follows a female serial killer on a quest for revenge. She ends up meeting and falling in love with a FBI agent who is investigating her murders. Obviously, the premise sets you up for some intense action, suspenseful moments, and the series has some severe trigger warnings. However, I did feel happy by the end of everything. Number 12 is, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation so far? I did watch Death on the Nile this year. I have not read the book actually, so I guess I can't really make comparisons. However, I did watch Death on the Nile twice because I watched it by myself and then I really wanted Troy to watch it, so I had him watch it with me again. This is a mystery novel that was written by Agatha Christie. This is about a couple who is recently married. They're on their honeymoon and they invite all of their friends and family to join them on this like little cruise. However, the husband's ex-girlfriend, fiance, is out for revenge and is continually disrupting this honeymoon until something tragic happens. 2 more questions, guys. The next one, number 13, is, what is the most beautiful book you bought this year? Unfortunately, this is going to be a quick answer because I didn't really buy a lot of books this year. However, I did digitally buy the Atlas 6 and I just like the design a lot. I feel like it's very inviting and simplistic, which I enjoy. I also like the new renditions of the cover that I've seen come out, so maybe when I actually buy a physical copy, I'll get one of those because I like all of them really, so. And finally, number 14 is, what books do you really need to read by the end of 2022? And I hate this question. I hate this question so much because I've been a terrible reader and primarily I've always been a fantasy reader. But the thing about being a fantasy reader is that you need to dedicate a lot of time to reading fantasy because they're usually very long and they're usually in series. However, that doesn't stop me from wanting to read all of these books that I've had on my shelf for years. So I'm just gonna throw a few at you and show you how many books that I've been wanting to read.
First one, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Been wanting to read this ever since it came out. The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Heard wonderful great things about this book and I loved The Night Circus, but here it still sits on my shelf. I want to read N.K. Jemisin. It could be this book, it could be the Broken Earth trilogy. I don't care, I just really want to read her. I want to finish the Red Rising series. I read the trilogy and then I never got to Iron Gold or Dark Age. I want to read Venetian Smile by C.J. Murwald, one of my favorite artists, and I still haven't gotten to it because fantasy. And I've been wanting to read The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart since last year and still haven't. So here it sits, and I'm pretty sure the sequel's out.
So yeah, there are a lot of books that I want to read. that I can only hope that I'll read this year, but chances are I'll only read maybe 1 or 2 of those, and then the rest will be completely random because I'm such a mood reader. I might actually do a video where I make one of those jars of all the books that I haven't read on my shelves, and I just pick and I have to read whatever I pick up. I'm just scared that that's going to put me in a book slump though, because I'm such a picky reader, and like I said, I'm a mood reader. So if I'm not in the mood for something, I don't want to automatically dislike it. But anyway, that is the end of the tag. I would like to know what your year in books has looked like so far. Do you have a favorite so far? Do you have most anticipated books coming up? Have you seen any good movie adaptations yet? I'm actually really looking forward to seeing Where the Crawdads Sing. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how your year has been so far. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads. You can also join my Discord channel called Paiging Through Club. There's a link below. We have a monthly read, and we talk about books and video games every so often. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I will see you back here very soon. Bye!